Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tami, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami, and this is episode 99. In today's episode, I interview Certified Fibromyalgia Advisor and Student Coach in Training, Ann Garner. Ann has been on her fibro journey for over 22 years. As you will hear us talk about in the interview, she was diagnosed in the dark ages of fibromyalgia, as I call it, back before there were any medications, any real treatment options available, back when we did not know much. In fact, Ann thought she had tried everything until she began her training to become a certified fibromyalgia coach and discovered just how much fibromyalgia treatment has changed in 22 years. Ann is a single mom of a tween, and her daughter has ME/CFS. She's got chronic pain and autonomic dysfunction, and Ann really understands how challenging it can be to take care of others while prioritizing and improving your own health. In our interview, Ann will share about filing for disability. She'll talk about being pregnant while having fibromyalgia. She'll talk about recovery and how she has taken her pain from a 7, 8, 9 down to a 2 or a 3 most days. And she's going to talk about how she is now returning to work and working her way off of disability. I also want to remind you, as always, that the information that we share in this podcast is not meant to be medical advice. We are sharing Ann's story, and we're sharing some of the things that she did to help her feel better, but this is certainly not intended to replace consulting with your own doctor or healthcare providers. Hi, Ann. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast to share your story.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited today.
Awesome. So I always like to start at the beginning with people, right? And you have had fibromyalgia, chronic pain for 22 years. So we're not going to tell every moment of all of those 22 years, but I do think people are interested in how everybody kind of comes to their diagnosis. Was it easy for you, or did it take a little bit to figure out what was wrong?
It was very difficult. I was in a car accident where I was rear-ended. I was at a complete stop and they were going like 30 and slammed into me. And then I started having issues in my upper back. So then I kept going in. I went doctor after doctor after doctor. And then it was finally a massage gal. She said, "I think you have fibromyalgia." And I go, "Fibro what? What's that?" And she says, "You need to go see a rheumatologist." So then I went and saw a rheumatologist, and she's the one that diagnosed me. I think she was only in my city for a couple of years, and then she left. And I was very fortunate because the gal, she knew exactly what it was. And once I found the right doctor, it wasn't an issue. So
Right. Same thing for me. It's like it took me a while to find the right doctor, but once I did, then it was like the key that unlocked it all, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
What kind of symptoms and things were you experiencing before your diagnosis? What led up to that?
Well, I had severe pain, and then I'd have, it was kind of like you felt like you had the flu, or I would do something and then I'd just be so exhausted and it wouldn't make sense. And there too, I was, trying to tell people that I knew, and they were like, "Oh, you just need to go exercise, or you need to do this." And I'm like, "No, it's not." Because everything, it made it worse. So that's what I was struggling so hard for so long. And at least now, there more people know about fibromyalgia, but 22 years ago, there wasn't much out there. I went and looked for every book I could find. There's 2 books that I found, and I still have them just
Hmm.
because, that was like, "Oh, this is what it is," you know?
Right, right. Same here. I mean, if you were diagnosed 22 years ago, right? We're recording this at the end of 22. So that would have been right in 2000. That was before there were any of the FDA approved meds, all came after that. So that diagnosis, your diagnosis happened kind of in I call it the dark ages of fibromyalgia. There wasn't much happening.
Well, and the other thing is doctors. A lot of doctors didn't believe, and they're like, "It's all in your head." And well, now we know it is actually in my head because it's more neurological, but and that's the thing, like the rheumatologist, she was the only one that could help me. And then she left. You name it, I did it. Acupuncture, massage, everything.
What were some of the things that helped?
The massage actually helped. So I started doing that, like probably as much as I could. I did that. And then I went to a pain clinic and they taught me several things. And that ended up getting shut down because, they weren't making enough money for the hospital. So it doesn't matter that they were helping people, but, they weren't making enough money. So I learned a lot from them. So that would be occupational therapy and physical therapy. They showed me different exercises and things to do.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I moved to Washington State, I actually found a doctor there that put me on Lyrica. He was the one that actually really helped me and kind of got things figured out for me. And he was just a regular general practice. I mean, he was just a regular doctor. But prior to that, it was just trying everything and nothing was working. And so, yeah, it was when I went to Washington State, that's where I actually really found a doctor that was able to help me. So,
Yeah. Well, and some of that might too have just been like the time frame of when those meds became available and then doctors learning about them, right?
yeah. Yeah.
And just the time being right for somebody to actually know enough. I mean, I think that's one of the biggest challenges we all have. Fibromyalgia is not something that's really taught in medical school.
No,
It's maybe a brief
no.
mention as they're talking about other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
But not the ins and outs of how to treat somebody. And so it can be really hard to find the right person who has the right information, the right knowledge to be able to help. So, yeah. And in there somewhere, you had your daughter because I know she's not 22.
No, she's not. No, she's not.
So let's talk about that for a minute. What was that like?
The whole pregnancy was horrible. I was in pain and we decided we had one and we were done. So that was one and done.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
have a wonderful daughter and yeah, the whole thing was horrible. And then I got postpartum. I had that and then they screwed up when they were doing the epidural. So I had to have a blood patch because I had a spinal headache. And
Oh my
so
gosh.
it
Yeah. Not fun. Not fun.
was not.
I get a lot of questions from people about fibromyalgia and pregnancy. And that's the one thing that I really can't answer because I've
Yeah.
never been pregnant and I've definitely never been pregnant with fibromyalgia. So I don't have any personal experience there. But, I've had some clients who I remember one woman told me that she absolutely felt the best that she ever did when she
Yeah.
was pregnant. And she would wanted to be pregnant like 24/7, 365, like
Yeah.
just all the time pregnant. But then there's a lot of other people I talk to who have situations like yours where it wasn't so good, or maybe the pregnancy was fine. And then, dealing with a newborn and not getting enough sleep afterwards was really a challenge.
It was more during, and honestly, looking back at it, I think it's because of my lower back. I think that was the huge reason of a lot of the pain. And then I didn't know that fibromyalgia amplified everything. So I didn't know that until I've taken your classes. So
Right. Yep. Any other little pains you got, fibro, take that and turn the volume up.
totally,
Uh,
totally.
so, as a new mom, then, how was that dealing with a newborn? dealing with fibromyalgia, dealing with postpartum, that just sounds like a disaster. Forgive me, but it does.
No, and yeah, looking back even to the first 6 months, and there was a lot of things going on in the marriage with where we were living. And so that caused all this other stress. But honestly, I think having my daughter was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was a piece that was missing from me. And then I think since I've had her, the most issues I had was it was like working because it took so much cognitive, and that was the big thing that I would struggle with was the cognitive piece.
All the brain fog and just being able to
Yeah.
think.
Well, and it'd be like some days you'd know it because prior to that, I mean, I was spot on with stuff that I did, but then I would like forget stuff and it's like I know it and I couldn't think of it. So then people are looking at you like, what's your issue here? You got something going on. And like, hey, it's my fibromyalgia. And people they didn't believe that then. And they're like, oh, well, you seem fine. I keep forgetting you have it. That caused a lot of issues. So
Yeah. Yeah. What's the time frame of this? When did this happen in relation to your diagnosis? We talking 10 years in, 15 years in? How long ago?
it was about 3 years when I got diagnosed. So, like I said, it was the massage therapist. She was the gal, and she's the one that's like, I think you have fibromyalgia. And it was after that, then I started, looking it up or whatever. And
Mhm.
there was nothing on the internet. The internet was, dial up at the time too. So,
Right, exactly. So searching and Googling things was a little bit different way back then.
yes, most definitely. Most
We
definitely.
went to the
Yeah.
library to Google.
Yeah. And there was nothing at the library. So I
No,
found
no.
Barnes and Noble had a book. That's where I started. So,
Yep, same here, same here. So it sounds like you found a few things that were working for you though, and that you
yeah.
had things somewhat managed because you were working, right?
Yeah, I was working full time, but I know I struggled with things and I was slower than some of the other people. And that was part of the issue was it was just, with the pain, it's hard to concentrate when you have so much pain. And then if you have to take something for the pain and then you get the fibro fog, it wasn't a good situation. And I wasn't my best. And I know I wasn't my best. And
Yeah.
so
So then what happened?
then we moved back to South Dakota and I worked a couple different jobs and then I ended up losing my job. It was because of my health. And then I filed for disability and during COVID, it was like when COVID hit, so it was like, oh, this is great. So the government, everything was shut down, whatever. So it took like 2.5 years to come through. So
Yeah, it takes a long time anyway,
yeah,
that
yeah.
sure didn't help.
No, it didn't at all.
Yeah. So how was that for you? So you filed for disability, you got your disability, right? They approved it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then did that help you? Did that help you find like, I don't know, time and space to heal or what happened?
I think during that time period, it took probably 6 months because actually, when I was struggling so much, my doctor had told me, and she goes, you've got to take some time off. You've got to work like maybe half days, whatever. And I said, if I do that, I know my employer's going to fire me. So I can't do that. And then, well, I ended up getting fired anyway. So it probably took a good 6 months, I think, to kind of just get rid of everything and just I mean, because all that stress and stuff too, that causes so many things. And then you've got all these things on your mind, I lost my job and I can't do anything. And you have all these things going on and what you're thinking of yourself. And then also during that time, my daughter had got mono. And then it was like a year later, then she started having more issues after doing more physical. She was playing basketball and had a lot of issues. So she woke up one morning. I mean, it was like she just had no energy. She had nothing. So I ended up going to doctors and doctors. And finally, we took her to the Mayo Clinic and they diagnosed her with chronic fatigue, chronic pain, POTS. And so then, after that, I ended up being an advocate for her. And then at that time, I learned to advocate for myself, which wasn't something, that I was used to doing. And I think some of it, because you just feel like you're beat down, because you lost your job, your friends, family, whatever, they don't believe you. They think, all these different
Doctors
things.
don't believe you.
Doctors, oh, so much, yeah, so much medical gaslighting. It's just like not even, yeah. But then I did find an internal medicine doctor, and I still see her today. She's amazing. She's the one that really helped me, because it's like, even I went to see a rheumatologist, while I was waiting for disability or whatever. And she's like, well, it seems like you have everything pretty much under control. I just keep seeing the same doctor. She goes, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. And that's what I kept hearing. Sorry, nothing I can do for you. I don't know what to tell you. So then when my daughter was having her issues, then I found a gal. It was kind of a long deal, but it was somebody that I had met on a website or on Facebook, got me in touch with another gal. And that gal, her daughter had chronic fatigue, and she was a fibromyalgia coach. And I'm like, what? What's that? And then she had sent me one of your books. Well, actually, I think a couple of them. She sent me your books. And then I started looking at your website and stuff. And then I'm going, I can do this. I want to do this. I was like, I'm like the fibromyalgia expert, in my
Oh,
life.
yeah. After all the
So I'm
things
like,
you went
yeah,
through and your
I'm like,
daughter and everything
yeah.
else.
I'm like, I can do this. So then I kind of started checking out, your website and stuff, and then figuring out things. And I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm like, I know I can do this. And it was after taking the fibromyalgia advisor class. It was amazing because I think I went from my daily pain, I think it was a 7, 8. It was high. I mean, there was times it was like 8, 9, and I'm down to like, 2, 3. Usually my pain is so much under control, and that's over all the different things that I've learned.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and it's like, how come doctors don't know all this,
Nobody taught them. That's why.
I know, because then, people are like, okay, well, who's this lady? Well, how does she know this stuff? And how is this and how is that? But I tell you what, it works.
Yeah.
You figure everything out with your sleep
And that's it, right? Like we didn't
yeah,
take in the class. We're not just like working on one thing. We're working on
no,
lots of different
yeah,
things. And
yeah,
that's how you get there.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what things did you find the most helpful for you? What do you think made the biggest difference in helping you bring your pain down?
Well, some of it was actually when I started seeing a functional medicine doctor. I had thyroid issues. Well, my regular doctor's like, no, you're fine. Everything's fine. After it was talking, in class, I learned the stuff. And then I'm like, that was part of it, because then that helped me get more sleep. It helped me feel more awake. And it was just like somebody flipped a switch.
Turn the lights on, turn the power on.
Yeah, because it was just like I was just dragging. And then I look back and I'm like, how was I functioning? No wonder I was struggling at work and stuff. It's
Yeah.
like the big thing is people don't believe unless they can see it. And one of the huge things I learned with doing even some advocacy work for fibromyalgia was the big issue has been that it's mainly women that have had fibromyalgia. So there's been no research done. It's because we're women.
Yep.
Everybody's like, she's
A
just,
hysterical woman.
yeah, she's just making it up. She's looking for attention, you know. So that was something too that, I've met some amazing women. And now that, I'm actually going to school to become a coach and I'm doing coaching, and there's this amazing network of women, and we all know different things and we help each other. It's so amazing.
I have to say that that's actually an unintended consequence of the work that I'm doing. I mean, I just set off to like help other fibro people. And at one point realized I can't help everybody. I better start teaching a few other people how to do this. Right. And through this whole amazing community has just shown up. So it's pretty cool.
It is. And like I said, even with I enjoy doing the advocacy bit because like there was nobody representing the state of South Dakota. So I was like, cool.
That's because it's like you and two other people in South Dakota, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. No one else has fibro here though. So
Oh my goodness. I bet there's a ton of people as
oh,
cold as
there
it gets up
is.
there. Oh
Yeah,
my word. Yeah.
there is. Totally. Yeah, it's only 22 degrees today. So
That's amazing. That's amazing. Oh my goodness. So many questions I want to ask you. So I know you talked about taking the coach class, being in the coach class. And before we started recording, you were telling me how being a coach and working with other people has helped you. And I would love for you to talk a little bit about that.
I mean, some of it is, it's just from my experiences, I'm able to help other people. And one of the young gal that I'm coaching, I remember she was got really quiet. And then she's like, I'm sorry that I'm quiet right now. She said, but nobody has ever understood me before. And nobody has ever been able to help me before. I just wanted to cry, because then I'm, thinking back to where I was prior to learning what I've learned. I was in the same boat. And that's
Hmm.
the thing. It's like, it's just amazing that with my experience and what I've learned, I'm able to help other people. It helps me. And, I know that helping other people, I mean, that's the biggest score for me. It's like now I've got something I can do for a job, right?
Right. Which leads me to another question I wanted to ask you. So earlier we talked about you filing for disability and actually winning your case, getting disability.
Yeah.
But now you're so much better. Your pain went from, 7, 8, 9 down to a 2 or a 3. Now you're starting to work. I'm sure there's lots of people listening that are thinking, okay, so how does that work?
Well, I mean, for my disability, it wasn't just for fibromyalgia because my neck and my back are like way worse than my
From the car
fibromyalgia.
accident, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And that was the thing too. It's like there's a deal, it's called Ticket to Work, and it's with Social Security. It's trying to help you so you can start working and find something you can do. And to me, this is going to be the perfect fit because it's something I can do and it makes me happy because I like helping other people. It's so rewarding. Because some of the other jobs I did, it was like basically trying to take a round peg and stick it into a square peg. It doesn't fit. And that's how I was that way for so long. I went to school to become a graphic artist. And then I was in insurance. And then now, this is more something that I'm interested in.
Mhm. I always feel like this is one of the reasons why my fibromyalgia is in remission, right? Because I can structure my life working for myself, right? I get to choose
Yeah.
when I work and how I work and who I work with and the kind of work I do and all the things, right? You have total control over all of it. And that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. It does. I mean, and I'll be honest, I mean, I overdo it a lot. And then you have to pay. So it's like
Well, as
pacing
a single
yourself,
mom, I think I don't know how you would not overdo it.
right? Yeah. I do things for, some other people that need help or whatever. And yeah. So
Yeah.
just doing the best you can, man. And that's where my whole faith thing comes in because it's like I used to talk to my dad on Thursdays. And, here and there I'd be struggling with this or that. He'd always tell me to keep the faith, kid. I hear the echoes of that from my dad. He, has passed away, but I hear the echoes of that. And it just keeps going, and that's another thing because some of the counselors or therapists I've seen or doctors or whatever, they're like, how are you still able to work? I'm like, well, I'm trying. But a lot of it, I mean, my faith has totally got me through everything. And that's what this whole thing, I'm kind of excited that this is going to air right before Christmas or whatever, too, just because,
That's what got you through.
that's it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I think too that when we have that kind of faith or belief in something that's bigger than us, I think that it also tends to give a little bit of meaning to our pain often, right?
Yeah.
Like being able to use the experience that we've been through to help somebody else, or using that experience to understand people who are hurting better, be more compassionate, like all of those things. I think it opens up something to us that maybe we wouldn't see otherwise.
And it's interesting that you said that because so my daughter, I tell her, because can you imagine? She started being sick when she was 8 and she's 12.
Wow.
Can you imagine for a kid to have that, to everything going on? And I keep telling her, I'm like, buddy, I go, because what are you going to say? It's crappy. It's so crappy. And I tell her, I said, buddy, I said, I go, someday you're going to be able to help somebody else with your story. You're going to be able to help somebody else. And that's what I think it's really about, and I think, it's not why it probably happened, but I do believe, not everybody believes in a higher power or whatever, but I do. And I'm giving back with it. It turned into a blessing
Hmm.
because I learned that I'm stronger than I knew I was. And yeah, it's my greatest blessing because it's like it's
Hmm.
uncovering who I was meant to be.
Yes, yes, that's
Peeling
such
back
a
the onion, peeling back the onion from the fibro and everything.
yeah. But without the fibro, I feel like this in my own life. Without the fibromyalgia, like we wouldn't have uncovered that.
Exactly. Because even like the last 2 years while I was taking the course and stuff, just, because I was going through divorce and
I don't
a
know.
lot
You
of
moved like
stress.
3 times or something
Yeah,
like that. It was insane.
yeah, I moved. And then, yeah, my daughter was having more issues. Yeah. So, and at times that, there too, I look back and I'm like, how did I do that? Oh my gosh. I don't know how I did that. But I know that faith is at the center of it, so.
Hmm. Yep. Yep. Carrying you through for sure. So, what's next for you?
Well,
Actually, as we're recording this, you're actually a student coach.
yes, I am a
So,
student
one
coach.
of the next things is you're going to finish that and graduate.
Yes, I'm going to finish and graduate. And then my goal is to get off of disability, and I'm using the ticket to work. But I know that I've got to take it slow as well because, just with my health, I got to make sure I don't overdo it because it's easy. I don't know if I'll be able to do the 40 hours a week working again, but just being able to start doing more. It's huge because, you start with you're on disability, you feel like you're nothing, and people look at you that way, or they, I'm the same person I was. I feel like I've been fighting for my life. And
Yeah.
then learning all these things about fibromyalgia, I was able to, like I said, I remembering the form that I was filling out. I think I was like, a lot of days I was like 8, 9, and I had a coach. I had my own fibromyalgia coach, and I remember her going, okay, well, this isn't a good thing. We've got to get your pain down. And then I was able to drop it through things that my coach helped me with the class. And I want to help other people, I guess. And that's what's next. I'm just going to keep helping people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you have been part of some really cool advocacy work as well. I would love for you to share just a little bit about some of what you've done this last year, I think it was, wasn't it? Earlier this
Yeah.
year?
Yeah, it was this last year. So I actually had connected with a couple gals on, they have Facebook groups, whatever. And then I found out there was like probably 3 that I've gotten in touch with. Well, 2 of them actually have taken your classes. So that was like super funny or kind of ironic, whatever.
Yes.
But yeah, so what I've been able to do is I got in touch with them and I met with senators and representatives in Washington, D.C. And I'm trying to think, it was for South Dakota and some for Minnesota. And they were the ones that, we were talking to about fibromyalgia because we need more funding because that's a huge thing.
That's part of why we have no good treatments.
Yeah. And like I said, that all goes back to it's mainly women and people don't,
Yep.
that whole deal. But so I did that. And then I actually got a proclamation for the mayor of my city. And I'm looking at it right now, so
That was a
fibrom,
proclamation for Awareness Day, right? Proclaiming.
yeah, he made it Fibromyalgia Awareness Month, which is super cool. And then also my daughter sat with me. So she is learning how to do that.
She met with the representatives and senators with
Yes.
you.
Yep.
That's really cool because I
Yeah.
think that's another thing is people don't realize, like they think of this as like middle-aged crazy women,
Yeah. Well, right.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to know that, I mean, she's not even a teenager yet.
No. Well, yeah. And then see, the other thing is then we also did for chronic fatigue, which is MECFS. And a lot of that is, with the long COVID. There's a lot of women that have both fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. And that's the other thing. There's so many other comorbidities that women with fibromyalgia have. And so I think even bringing out the fibromyalgia is going to start helping with some of the other things that women have. Because if you have fibromyalgia, you've at least got 2, 3 other things, besides fibromyalgia. It's not just fibromyalgia.
Almost never. Yeah, yeah. It's usually a whole pack of things that go along with it. So, yeah, definitely. And this advocacy work that you did, I just want to let people know this was done through the Support Fibro Network, right?
Yes. Yes.
So we will have on today's show notes page some links where you can get connected with them. I know they're already starting to gear up for the 2023 advocacy work where I'm hoping we can get them talking here on the podcast to share more about that because it's such important work that they do there. But we will have that link in today's show notes. Just go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com and it's episode 99. So fibromyalgiapodcast.com/99. And that will have all of today's links. And for the person who is listening, who can relate to your story, having a kid, raising a child as a single mom, having fibromyalgia, having a kid with their own chronic health issues, being divorced, moving a million times, disability, not disability. I mean, we could go on and on, right?
Yeah.
So, for
Yeah.
anybody who relates to any of that, what would you like to make sure that they know? What would you like to share with them?
There's life with fibromyalgia. There's more to your life than you have now. And, like for me, working with a coach, it changed my life and it changed my daughter's life because that was originally kind of how I, you know, got a hold of this lady because, she knew about chronic fatigue. Little did I know she was a fibromyalgia coach. So it's like without her, I wouldn't have been able to change my life. So I really believe that, once you find somebody, like a fibromyalgia coach, for example, because we live with fibromyalgia, who else does? Your best person to talk to is somebody who's improved their own fibromyalgia, right?
Yep. Find somebody who's gone where you want to go and have them help you get there.
Yeah. I know of one doctor that had fibromyalgia, and she's the one too that she's working with the advocacy and she's doing some of these other amazing things too. So
Yep. Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and for you listening. Anne does do coaching as part of her training to become a coach. She's one of the student coaches you can actually schedule a consultation with. So if you're interested in talking with Anne, there's no charge to meet with one of our student coaches. And you can schedule all of that if you go to findafibrocoach.com. We'll have that in today's show notes as well. There'll be a little application to fill out. And then once you submit your application, choose the student coach option. And then you'll see Anne's picture right there with her calendar, and you can schedule directly with her. Anything you would want to tell somebody who's thinking about talking to you? What is that appointment like with you?
well, first we kind of just ask a lot of questions, want to kind of know a little bit about your story, how it was, and then kind of, like when I'm doing coaching, it's basically we're going to kind of ask you how your week was, kind of figure out what you have coming up, and then we help you work through challenges that you're having. And, you know, that's to improve your life.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I always tell people it sounds super simple, but that's where the magic happens, right? Because that's where we're talking through, oh, I've got this thing coming up. Okay, well, how do we do that thing in a way that doesn't flare up your fibro, right? Or, hey, I had a flare last week. Okay, how did that happen? Is there anything we could do differently next time? And working through all of that.
Yeah. And it's not easy. I mean, it's not an easy thing to work through it, but it's definitely worth it. And I want to give a shout out to you, Tami, because you have done so much for so many women where, I mean, it's just, I know even the group of fibromyalgia coaches that I work with or whatever, too, we're just like, we're so thankful that you decided to create this opportunity for other women that as well. Right now, I'm just working with, women, but I mean, thank you, because without you, you helped me change my life. So thank
Oh,
you.
thank you so much, Anne. I think it's so funny. I certainly did not plan to do all of these things, right? I was just like, okay, what's something that I can do? How can I maybe help a couple other people?
Yeah.
Right. And so if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, how did that happen? Kind of a deal. Little bit by little bit, I am totally just the tortoise in the tortoise and the hare. I just take like the next little step. And so can you. I mean, that's what Anne's doing, right? It's
Yep.
not like overnight, all of a sudden you
No,
fixed your fibromyalgia and you're 100% back to work. It's still in process, but little bit by little bit, we get there.
that's what and I mean, it wasn't easy, but you can do it.
Yep.
If you want to do it, you've got to be open to change and do different things. And that's what I tell my daughter too is, slow and steady, buddy, slow and steady, be the turtle. That's what it's been and it's worked. So
Yep, exactly. And I think the thing that is hard to remember sometimes is that we can work at fixing all of these things, right? Like changing your habits or changing your diet or whatever it is that you need to do, right? Fixing your thyroid, all this stuff. But it takes time for our bodies to heal, right?
exactly.
Every cell in
Yes.
your body,
Yes.
I think it's something like, in 10 years, all the cells in your body have been replaced. So when I talk about being in remission now, and I was diagnosed in 2000, when was that? 7. So it's been 15 years now. Well, that kind of then makes sense because in 10 years, every cell of my body has been replaced. So it can feel like an overwhelming thing to feel like, oh my God, do I have to wait 10 years?
Nope. You don't.
But also, like, don't just try something for 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months and be like, oh, well, that didn't work. You got to give it time.
Yeah. You've got to be patient with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But at the
Exactly.
end of the day, you're worth it. So
Absolutely. And so are all of the people that you'll be able to help, right? Whatever it is that you decide to do, wherever you decide to go from here, if you're more healthy, if you can be more you, then you bring your special magic to the world, right?
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Anne. Thank you for being willing to share your story and share a little bit about, on our Christmas week a podcast episode of the role that your faith has played in helping you get here. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
And that wraps up my interview with Ann Garner Coulter. As mentioned in the interview, Ann is one of the students that you can meet with. If you'd like to schedule a consultation with me, Ann, or one of our coaches, just go to findafibrocoach.com. We'll also have that link in today's show notes. And if you enjoy hearing stories like this, if they encourage you, if they give you hope, then we would love to have you join us for our next live Stories of Hope and Healing events. That next event will be held on Saturday, January 21st, and we will have the link where you can RSVP in today's show notes. You can go to fibromyalgiapodcast.com/99 to get that link, or you can go directly to ifcigraduation.com and just RSVP to join us live on Saturday, January 21st to hear from more of our graduates. And now I've got this week's listener shout out for you. This comes from a listener in Ohio who said, "Thank you so much for your podcast and your book about fibromyalgia. They have both been helpful in helping me live the best life I can despite my health challenges." Thank you so much for that. And for those of you listening, the book she's talking about is probably Take Back Your Life, which is the book that I just recently updated and expanded. You can get a free copy of both of my books, Take Back Your Life and The Fibromyalgia Coach, if you go to our show notes page. Again, fibromyalgiapodcast.com/99. There will be a link right there. You'll also see books in the menu at the top where you can request free downloads of both of those books. Thank you so much, and we will see you back here next time. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tami Stacklehouse. For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.